prior to meeting as a group on Thursday mornings, I gave Sandy the book, and she took it home and was looking through it and was kind of picking out some themes and some topics and just kind of giving an overview of what the book was gonna cover. And we kind of decided in our heart that we wanted to add a little something to our weeks. We had a couple weeks extra, and we thought, gosh, it would be really nice to add some worship. And so we brought Corey and Kathy in. But on a particular day, we have it full wide open that we didn't have to do the actual study. We don't have to do our homework, or we don't have to break into groups. So that's why we're not watching a video today. But the topic for this week was crying out to the Lord, and we're like, well, what can we do with that? And instantly in my head, I knew what I wanted to do with this week, crying out to the Lord. And instantly my sister's name came to my mind, because I remember her sharing her story and her life circumstances with me, and she always said, and I just cried out to the Lord. I had to cry out to God. And so when this topic came up, and Sandy goes, and this week here, week 6, it's about crying out to the Lord. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my sister Donna. So I knew we were supposed to have her come and speak this morning. And I got some pictures that I want to share with you. No pictures? Did Nicole not get those up? Okay. This is my sister's family. She is a mother of 6 kids, and that's them. This is taken 3-4 years ago, or something like that. And that's her little Lexi Lou. That's Lexi. She's in the hospital there, probably getting one of her treatments. That's my sister saying a little prayer, hugging her daughter before she heads into surgery. That's her twin sister, Lindsay, and that's actually at her grave, Lexi's grave. Lindsay finds solstice there. She just felt so comforted. She felt like she was close to her sister there. Very sweet, sweet, tender thing. But my sister has a very powerful testimony. As you've heard me share, some of you who were part of our Thursday morning study kind of walked through the process of me coming to you saying, would you please pray for my sister and her family and her little daughter, Lexi, who's her liver, she has cirrhosis of the liver. She was 1.5 years at the time and had severe cirrhosis of the liver. Please pray for her. She needs a transplant. So some of you actually walked that process with me on Thursday morning, and you prayed for her. So you kind of got intimately involved with her family and praying for my sister and her husband and her 5 kids, along with Lexi being the 6th. And you heard me give testimony of what she needed, the hurt there, the crying out to the Lord, Lord, help, we need your help, we need your hand of healing. And so you walked that out with me, and I'm so very thankful for my Thursday morning group. It was an amazing time, and you supported me and my sister's family on an extended way. But it was actually a Thursday morning in February 18th, that I got a phone call very early in the morning from my older sister, who had said that Lexi had passed away. She was in the hospital. She had received a transplant. It was actually a week after her transplant, and she had suddenly passed away. And I sat there in my bed, because I got woke up, and I sat there in my bed, and I was stunned. I was numb. I didn't even know how to respond. I just started crying. And I just started crying out to the Lord. Oh, Lord, I don't know what you're thinking here. I don't get this, and I don't know what to do with this. But I do know that I need to get up and I need to get ready for Thursday morning Bible study, because I've got a group of women that I need them to pray right now. And so I showed up, I was here. I think the first person I ran into was Denise Biggins, and she just hugged me, and that was amazing. But during the process of that whole study, the Lord was speaking to my heart, because I was just kind of confused and overwhelmed. And that morning, Beth Moore, I think we were in Esther, and Beth Moore said this phrase. She said, God never allows a fire to burn unless he can bring beauty from the ashes. And that sunk deep into my soul. I needed to hear that. So whatever the reason was, whatever the road that we were going to have to travel from this point on, I knew that God spoke something very directly to my heart, in my heart of disappointment, in my heart of not understanding at all what he was thinking. He said, I never allow a fire to burn, Denise, unless I can bring beauty from these ashes. So with that, I want to introduce you to my sister, Donna. She's very near and dear to my heart. She's my littlest sister. And there's a lot of stories that go along with that, some of which we won't share. We can turn the pictures off now because I think that'll just be way too emotional for her to have to see those while speaking. But this is my little sister. And if you are not amazed by her as she shares, I just know you will be. There isn't a doubt in my mind that you're not going to be amazed by this powerful testimony. She's amazing, and I'm so proud of you. Can I just say that? I'm just so proud of you, and I won't make you cry. So I'll just hand over the microphone to you. And
you already made me cry. Well, before I start, I want to start off with something very positive. I arrived here yesterday and got to spend some time with my sister, and we got to play Scrabble, one of my warmest, dearest things to my heart to play with my sister, and I won. So by 20 points, and I must relish and rub it in. So that's the positive note. Now we'll move to the heavier stuff. I want to start out with this scripture from Isaiah. It's Isaiah 61. And it says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor." And I feel like in this scripture, God gave to me a picture. And this picture he gave to me in the midst of my pain. And if you've read my blog, you may have heard this story. But this is what God gave me. I saw this broken, this vessel or this vase. And it's like here it is. And it came crashing into the ground, shattering into 100 pieces. And you would look at this and say, what can I do with this? It's broken. It's ruined. How could I possibly put these pieces back together? And I feel like this was my life at the time. I had been through an awful lot, even besides the death of my daughter prior to. That was the cherry on top. And so here's my life in all these pieces, and I felt like God gave me this picture. He came and he did these things for me. He brought freedom to my captive heart of pain. And he brought gladness instead of mourning, okay? He did what the scripture did for me by picking up these pieces, and he put them together, okay? What seemed impossible, he did, and he put them together. And he created this beautiful picture, this mosaic. That's what a mosaic is, pieces put together. And something beautiful came from a huge mess. And that's what I want to start my story out with, is this is a piece of my mosaic, of my life, that God has then taken and he put it on display. It's a display of his splendor. It's a testimony of his greatness and who he is and his goodness and his glory and his mercy that he has. And he uses it, and it's on display for others to see, that they might have something to grab on and hope and see our God and who he is. He's displayed in it. And so this starts my story. My family at one time was my husband and I and my 3 children, Logan, Lauren, and Landon. And I begged my husband for an entire year, please let me have another baby. And I wanted one so bad. I really felt my family wasn't complete. And he finally gave in. And he said, that's fine. And story goes on. That stick had 2 lines on it. And I went to the doctor for the first time to see my baby. I'm so excited. And the doctor took a look, and he left the room. And then he came back in. He goes, you're having twins. And I go, shut up. Oh, no, you're totally kidding me. I go, stop joking with me. He goes, no, you are. You're having twins. I go, shut up. And anyhow, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm having twins. And I called my husband, and he was at work, and he had to sit down. He almost passed out, he said. And he's like, what did I get myself into? I said, yes to 1, and we're getting 2. And thus began my journey of my pregnancy, and I made it to 25 weeks. I'm so excited for what I have coming to me, and I went into premature labor. And my doctor said I'm going to have to go into the hospital on bed rest. And I have 3 more children at home and a husband, and what do I do here? You know, a mom is like the rock in the family. So I gave my life up, and I went into the hospital for 2 solid months. My children were sent to my husband's family for 1 solid month, and then my mom came for a solid month to take over. And while in the hospital, I was fighting for 2 lives. And when I know I'm going to have a baby, I fall in love instantly. Instantly. I think it's a mother's instinct. You know, I don't have to even see them. I just know there's life in there, and I can't wait in anticipation for what is to come. And I feel like when I got placed in the hospital and the fear of loss that I could possibly be enduring, I wanted to separate myself from what was inside of me and protect myself, that I wouldn't have to feel the pain if he chose to take them. And I didn't go home with 2 babies. And I relied on something that I learned. I believe that we go through things, and God teaches us things, and we take those things to the next things we go through. And it helps us along the way. And something I learned when my daughter Lauren was little, she didn't eat. She struggled eating, and outright refused. She never ate anything. And I was being forced into the hospital realm again with her, and my life was falling apart. My husband at the same time might lose his job, so my finances were looking at going down. I was pregnant with my Landon. I'm like, which one is it? Landon. And so I'm pregnant, finances are going down. I might have to go live with my in-laws or my mother. We may lose our house, and my daughter is not eating. And you can't force someone to eat. You can't. You can try, but you can't force them to eat. And everything was spiraling out of control in my life. And I was in my living room one day, and I said, okay, I'm a mess. I was borderline needing medication, anxiety out the roof. And I can't do this anymore. I'm a mess. So I'm standing in my living room, and this is going to seem really funny to you. But I just took it. And I said, okay, God, here, take this one, God. I can't do it anymore. Take my daughter to eating. I can't force it. Here, it's yours. It's yours, God. And take my husband's job. Have that one, God. and take my anger and my anxiety and all of it. I can't have it anymore. I can't do this. Take it. And I'm jumping up in my living room, throwing it at him. And I was. And in the midst of it, I started worshiping him. That song, Blessed Be the Name of the Lord. You give and take away, but my heart will choose to say, Blessed be the name of the Lord. I started worshiping him, and I started singing this song and dancing in my living room, throwing it all up to him. And this enormous amount of peace came over me, something I've never truly experienced before. And the strength rose up in me. And I took that huge lesson of how to endure things and giving control to God and letting him have it into this hospital room, okay? I'm fighting for 2 lives. I have no control. God is the giver of life. I can't make these 2 babies live, and I can't make this be a successful pregnancy. And I gave it to him, and he helped me through it. Because if I had stress at all or I cried in that room, I contracted. And when I was at peace, I didn't contract. And so the nurses and the doctor did everything they could to make my atmosphere peaceful. And I needed to let go and give it to God, or I wasn't going to make it. And that's what I did. I took that lesson and I applied it. And I made it to 32 weeks, 2 beautiful, healthy babies that had nothing wrong with them. They just struggled breathing. And they went home 1 month later after the NIC unit, 1 month later, both at the same time. And it was a huge miracle. The doctors were astounded that I made it as far as I did, because he's just like, you're here another day. Wow. and it was still another day for 2 months. And I owe it to God. And I said to God in that room, if you give me these 2 babies, I'll raise them to serve you the rest of my life. They're yours, God. If you choose to take them, I will bless your name and praise you anyway. But if you choose to give them to me, please, 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 then I will raise them for you. And he did. And it was truly a miracle. And I look back, it's tied to that one thing I learned with my daughter and giving control and the peace that I had in my life from it. So the key to strength is to not rely on your own. It's to throw all your present circumstances to the Lord and allow him to carry them. It's completely against our natural human tendencies. We fight. We hold on. We like to control things. We want things to go the way we want them to go. It's completely against it. So you disarm yourself, give it all to him, and an unbelievable strength will rise up in you. So taking this lesson now, I move on to my next trial. My daughters, my twins, were due for their 1-year checkup. And taking them in, the doctor was feeling Lexi's stomach, and she found a hard mass in there. And she said, let me just run an x-ray of that and make sure maybe it's not just a bowel movement or something that she's yet to have. And she came back and said, so sorry. It's not. There's something there. So I had to go to the hospital directly afterwards. I had a friend pick up Lindsay, and I don't know, I think the neighbors took over the rest of the kids in my house. And I went to the hospital, and I was going through the steps now of finding out, well, what's going on. And they took a blood test, and found out that something's going on with her liver. And trying to remember, I think we had to go home at some point there. We didn't remain there we got scheduled to go back where she was going to be admitted. And in that week's time that we're waiting to go to the hospital for her to have a biopsy and all these things, we got sick. Our whole family is just sick, from my husband, myself, and all 5 kids. And so sick that we couldn't take care of our own house. We had to call in Grandma. So Grandma was coming anyway because of Lexi going, but we had to call her in early. So we're like, Grandma, you got to come now. We can't take care of our own house. We need you. And we're like, you're going to get sick. Oh, joy. Grandma was probably really excited to come to the house. And so she came to the house, and she took care of us, and she got sick. And my husband and I weren't quite recovered, and here we are taking Lexi now to the hospital to go through her tests, and she isn't even fully recovered. And we had to wipe out that fear of cancer. And they said, no, it's not cancer, but it's cirrhosis of the liver. So, okay. All right, God. I can take this one. All right, we can walk through this one. I know where my strength is. I know how to cast it on you, and I know not to carry it. So, all right, I'll walk through this one. Okay. She just needs the liver, right? So that's where I'm at. And she went fairly healthy for the next couple of years there. I think it was like 1.5 years or so, until she was about 3 years old, in and out of the doctor's office checking up. When all of a sudden she had a variceal bleed. Now, prior to this, because just to know what my life was like, right before it, I had just had a hysterectomy. And I was hemorrhaging over and over and over again, a total of maybe 4 times, thinking I'm never going to get over this. Why can't anything ever be smooth and easy and simple? It always has to be a struggle. Who hemorrhages 4 times after a hysterectomy? I do. So I have a doctor on this end telling me, you need to take your daughter for a second opinion. I have a doctor on this end telling me, oh, why don't you just stay with me? Why do you want to go somewhere else? And then I have my life. Am I even going to live? And chaos, total chaos. And just near the end of my recovery, which I thought would never come, immediately Lexi had her variceal bleed. And I was thrusted into the whole hospital realm and transplant world with her. So my life is it's crazy again. The stress is up to here, the anxiety is up to here, and I'm faced with that whole choice again, and I'm looking up to God going, okay, I'm sitting in the hospital, or in my hotel room at this time, and Lexi was in the hospital, and I'm like, I need you, God. God, I just need your peace. And I had this gentle rain, this picture, and this gentle rain come over me. You had one yesterday, actually. I think it does that a lot here. But this gentle rain I felt come over me, and it felt so good. But behind it, I could see these lightning streaks and just thunder crashing, okay? But I was experiencing a gentle rain. And I felt like God was saying, there's a storm brewing, okay? And it's going, and it's bad. But you're going to feel the gentle rain of my spirit in the midst of the storm. And he spoke peace, the word peace, to my heart. Peace, be still. And the very next day, traveling in the car to the hospital, I heard the song, Still by Hillsong. And the part in the song that really stood out to me was it says, hide me under your wings. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. wow. So God truly came behind me and said, you're going to feel peace. And hop on my wings, come under my wings, and let's soar above it all. Let's soar above it all. That's what his word says he'll do for us, and that's what he did for me through this, through the hospital visits over and over and over again. I think I lived at the hospital with 5 more kids at home. And I had grandma coming every 6 weeks, and then this grandma trading places every 6 weeks, and it went on and on and on that way. And I think you may have heard I was looking at sending my kids here to live with my sister. And I'm so thankful God made her sick so that wouldn't happen, because I may not ever have experienced, my children may never have gotten those experiences with their sister for the time that she got to come home on and off, even if it just be for a few days. And it was meant to be. So I'm so thankful to God that he made her sick. But I relied on a faith that I had since I was 9 years old. Our family got saved when we were 9, coming out of a lot of chaos itself, as my father was an alcoholic. And I've known God, I would say, most all my life. And I know him, I've seen miracles, and I felt like I had a really good faith, and he's helped me through so much already, and I've learned so many lessons that brought me through so many different things. And when my daughter died 1 week later after a transplant, I felt like my entire faith was just shattered. How could I trust and love a God who I felt gave me a miracle of a liver, only to take and then let her die? This is my thought process. How can I serve somebody who's so cruel? It was cruel. The pain I felt, the anguish, the anger, the frustration, the absolute numbness that goes so deep. I can't even, expression isn't even good enough for it. I can feel it as I speak. How can this be my loving God? How? My world is falling apart. God, I'm so upset with you. And in that place, I'm in the hospital, actually. She's passed away. They no longer can do CPR. They shut that door. It was final. And I threw myself on that floor, and 7 hours went by between the floor and possibly another room. I don't even know where that time went. And I said to a nurse, how do I do this? How do I do this one? I knew how to do all the others. He showed me I had that strength. I had everything I knew how to do, but I don't know how to do this one. Not death. How do you do death? It's like final. You can't get that child back. You can't have it back. Everything it's changed. It's final. How do I do this? So I went home, 6-hour drive. We didn't utter a single word in the car. And we got home to 5 beautiful children who came running out. And they said, "Where's our sister?" And we said, "Let's go inside. Let's go inside and talk." They said, "How could you leave her at the hospital?" And we went inside and we had to talk to our kids and say, "Your sister's never coming home again." And the anchor's building. And the hurt's getting deeper and stronger. And I almost felt this cold bitterness towards God rising up in me. This God I've served since 9 years old, despite his miracles I've seen. So I felt like he abandoned me. Have you ever felt like you were abandoned as a Christian, as one knowing God? Have you ever had that feeling of, gosh, God, are you really there? You know, what we've been taught all our lives? I felt like he wasn't. And I was standing in my laundry room. I think this was the very day after her death. And my mom was in there doing what moms try to do and trying to encourage me. Put on that garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. That's what she always sang. And I looked at her and I just said, no. God doesn't answer prayer. God wasn't there for me. This is a bunch of baloney. I don't know what to believe anymore. And my mom, no, he does answer prayer. No, he doesn't. If he answers prayer, then why didn't he answer my prayer? What did I do wrong that God couldn't answer my prayer? I prayed so much for my daughter and laid hands on her and anointed her with oil that she looked at her bottle of oil in her house and would bring it to me and say, Mommy, put it on my belly. How couldn't he answer it? And if he didn't want to answer my prayer, if I'm not good enough, I said, then why didn't he answer all of your prayers? Or everybody else out there, you were praying everywhere for her. Why? The anguishing question of why. And where were you? Were you even there? And I just want to say, God ministered immediately. In my place, immediately he ministered to me. And these are some of the ways that he did that for me. We went to church that week. You said it was Thursday. She knows more than I do. So 3 days later, we went to church. That's where I wanted to be as confused as I was at the time. I know where to run. So I'm in church, and it just seemed like everything the pastor said pierced directly to my heart. He was speaking to me. God himself was. And there was a visitor there that day who she sang a song, a special. And it was almost as if he planted her there that day just for me. The song she sang, and I cried through the entire service. And I went home still confused because I have a whole lot of emotions in me that aren't making sense. And grief is that way. I think when you walk through grief, you get bombarded with so many emotions. And it's a walking out process. So I'm in the height of it. So I went home, and we had a pastor from Alabama. His name was Pastor Aaron Reed, I believe, or Aaron Freed. He's a pastor out in Alabama who happened to be in town in Tulsa that week. And he knows my in-laws who were there. And he called up and said, hey, I'm in town. And he heard the news. He said, let me come to your house and pray for this family. So he came to my house. I don't really want to see anybody. I hadn't eaten. I'm weak. I'm angry. I don't want to hear anything that he has to say. I have no interest. And he's there to pray with us, and he's talking. I don't remember very much of what he said at all, but at the very end, he said these words: God still answers prayer. And in my spirit that was so shut down and hard and cold, it's like I tuned in instantly, like you do on a radio. And the frequency came in so clear, and it was like so loud and vibrant to me. I recognized it. It was God. God himself spoke to me. He cared enough of the state of my heart, and he cares for the brokenhearted, that he spoke to me through this man. And that man didn't even know it. He had no idea. My mom knew. She heard my words in the laundry room that God doesn't answer prayer. And I don't believe that God knows deep inside my heart that I know he answers prayers. I do know him. But what I feel he wanted me to know was, I heard every single word you have said. I was there through the entire thing. I've never left your side. As his word says, he'll never leave or forsake us. And my heart went, oh my gosh. You're there. You hear me. And it just melted. You haven't abandoned me. And it melted this cold heart. And through it, I started to blog. I think when you go through grief, my out was just, people don't like to hear depressing things. My mom didn't want to hear much because it made her cry. My husband grieved in a different way, and he didn't like that I was outspoken with it. He inwardly did it. And it was my out. And I started to write things out, and I started to have this relationship with my God who's completely tuned into me right now, okay? He's there. He's right here, okay? My arm around him. And I'm looking at him and saying, sitting at my computer, okay, God, since you're here, I have a few questions for you. You know, why? Why did you take my daughter? The one I fought so hard for 2 solid months. Why did you give her to me and then take her? And I wrestled with him. I wrestled with him. Just like Job, parallel it with Job. Job went through great loss, far worse than myself. And he wrestled with God. He wrestled him. Why, God, why? My soul is so anguished even unto death. And that's what I began to do, just like Job. I wrestled with him. I went to God and I wrestled with him, and he had his ear tuned into me, and I took full advantage of it. So I asked God why. And I felt like as I'd sit at my computer and express some of these things, he started to talk to me because I had his ear. And I felt he put in my spirit, why did you take her, God? Simply because I created her for heaven. She was created for heaven. And I was too. And you are too. We're all created for heaven. And it's like he said, don't get so caught up in the circumstance. It's a hard one to really listen to. But it's funny, when God speaks things to you, we get it. We listen. I wouldn't have listened to that if somebody else had said it to me. But he was talking to me. I had his ear. He was ministering to me. He never left my side. And he said to me in my spirit, I created her for heaven, and I created you for heaven. Don't get so caught up in the circumstances. And so I said in my heart, okay, God, all right, I'm going to trust you. It's just that simple, I guess. I'm going to lay it down. And I'm going to I continue to throw myself at you. And something else I had learned from when I was a little girl, when we first got saved at 9 years old. Our family was quite a mess. And when we went to church in those early years, and we would go into worship, God's presence would come on me so heavy. Nobody had to lay hands on me. Nobody prayed for me. I would be just standing in my seat, as you are now, with his presence so heavy on me, I would fall over, or I'd have this glazed over look. My sisters would laugh at me. He did so much healing in his presence from when I was a little girl. He did it, no man. It wasn't man. And I remember those days, and I recognize his presence. And when the time gets hard, as when I lost my daughter, and my heart melted under his voice, I ran to him. I threw myself at him. I laid in bed and I said, God, it hurts so bad. The pain, the anguish, it hurts so bad. Come and sit on me like you did when I was that little girl, and you brought so much healing into my life. I just ran to him. I wanted to be in his presence any second I could. I melted in his presence. I melted in his worship, because his presence is like a big daddy giving you a great big bear hug. And we know the comfort we feel in that. We know the security we feel in that. We know the peace we feel in that. And that's what I did. And as I threw myself at him, and as I wrestled with him with my questions, it wasn't always pleasant. I think I cussed God out. I did cuss God out. I should probably admit it. That might be considered blasphemy to some people. I think I look at it and say I was real. I'm a real person. And I have real pain here. And I can't fake my Christianity through it. I can't fake my feelings here. I have some real questions. And I have some real struggles. And I need a real God. Not one who's going to bring judgment on me. One who's going to give me that big bear hug and love me through it. And that's what he did. That's what he does for us. And I continued on, and I blogged, and I released my feelings to him, and that's what he did for me. He brought me a real peace into my life. And it was through him. I think it's important that we run to God and we allow his presence to soak us. There's real healing there. and it's done by him. And I love, love, love his presence. I cry in it. I don't ever apologize for tears. I think tears bring healing. I think you should never be afraid to cry. And you shouldn't be afraid to express yourself to God. Because he's right there. He hears it all. He knows you. He wants you to do that. He's waiting. When my heart was really hard towards him after she died, one of the things God did for me was he gave me this dream as he was trying to minister and reach out to me. And I had this dream of, I saw this bloody dress. It was a child's dress, okay? And then it moved on, and I ran into an individual. And I recognized this individual as the murderer, the one who took this life. And he was holding a can opener. That's how I knew this dream was from God, because you just don't dream about a murderer holding a can opener. I mean, not a can opener. So he sought after me with this can opener, okay? And I feel like God was saying to me, the enemy wants to come and take your circumstances, this loss, this death. To me, it felt like this was a murdered child, taken unrightfully. And I felt my daughter's loss was just taken unrightfully. It shouldn't have happened. And he comes to take our circumstances. He uses them, okay? And this can opener, this weapon, he wants to open you up like a can and take everything inside of you and rob it. He wants to take your peace. He wants to take your joy. And he uses our circumstances to do this if we allow him to. And at the end of the dream, the words went, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He inevitably wanted to take my circumstances, destroy me, and kill me with them. There's two roads I could have gone down here. I could have chosen to turn my back on God and not run into his arms and be that bitter person and to allow my grief to rule me, because I was going to go through it. It wasn't going to go away. Even though I serve a God, I'm still going to walk through this process. And I could allow that process and the devil to use it against me and to destroy my life. Who knows what would have happened? I've had thoughts of suicide. If I'm honest, sometimes I still go there. My desire and the pain is so hard that it's hard to look past sometimes. And that's what the devil inevitably wanted me to do. And I said after I woke up from this dream, I said, I laughed out loud. I do things sometimes, I'm throwing things up in the living room. I laughed out loud. I went, I am a greater force to reckon with. I'd be darned if you're going to do this to me. Oh, no. I'm a greater force to reckon with. What power does the devil have over you? When you know God and you know what he can do and you know your place in this world, that although everything around you can be turmoil, you can have peace. And if you lose your son or your daughter or your mother or your father or your job or your finances are falling apart or your relationship with your husband is struggling, whatever is going on, whatever, you are triumphant in it. Because I'm not going to allow him. Those things, the things of this world don't matter because we're not of this world. He created me for heaven. Do not get so concerned with the things of this world and your circumstances. You're created for heaven. It's that simple. I choose to trust it. Choose to believe it. I choose. I'm so glad I didn't go down that path. I'm so glad I ran into the arms of God and I allowed him to do this work in me. He's still doing this work in me. I don't know how long it'll take. My opinion, it'll take a lifetime. I believe that death is the entryway into real life. My daughter is still alive, and I will see her again someday. And I ask myself, how will I live out my life until that day? I choose not to let the circumstances of this world rule my life. Throw that one up to you, God. It's all yours. I'm not going to carry it. I'm not going to carry the things of this world that the enemy would like to use to destroy us. He would like to use to make you weak and feeble. I'm not going to allow it. I struggle. Doesn't mean I'm like Superwoman over here. I struggle. But I know my God's right here, and I talk it all through with him. And I think the greatest thing that changed in my life is that relationship right there. It's like I have a personal coffee table right here. That's Starbucks. It's called Mom Bucks. And my God's right here, and I'm right here, and we talk over coffee all the time. We work these things out. Okay.